Hey guys, it's JW Gaming here, and today we're going to be having a look at the minimum and recommended requirements to run Battlefield 1. Now, I did a previous video looking at the beta and how that played and predicted what the sort of minimum and recommended requirements would be, and to be honest, for the most part I was pretty on point with that prediction. So minimum requirements and recommended requirements have now been released. Now again, take these with a pinch of salt because they might end up being that you can indeed play with some slightly lower hardware. It depends what your overall rig is. So minimum requirements, first of all, for the processor you've got the AMD FX 6350 6-core CPU or the Intel Core i5 6600K. Now if you watched my previous video you will have seen that I thought that that would be the minimum requirement. I'm very surprised that it is actually a 6600K that they've listed as minimum requirement, but it's probably because that is the latest, that is the Skylake CPU that is the i5 unlocked variant. Now you will be able to run it with a 4690K, no doubt. To be honest, the difference between the 6600K and the 4690K isn't too much, so you will be able to run it just fine on that i5 CPU. Now for memory, it's a standard 8GB of RAM, which is pretty much the baseline for all games now. Hard drive space is 50GB. This is going to be a very, very big game, as you would expect, and that will of course increase with DLC as well. Now for video card, you need a DirectX 11 compatible card, and the minimum for AMD is the HD 7850 2GB variant, and the minimum is the GTX 660 2GB variant for Nvidia. Now these are slightly lower than I expected. I expected it to be somewhere around the 760 or something like that in terms of Nvidia graphics, and maybe an R9 280 or 280X for AMD graphics, but this is a good sign that it can be played on some fairly lower end, or should I say older, graphics hardware. Now moving on to the recommended requirements, as I said, I wasn't surprised by these minimum recommended requirements either. The only difference is that the memory requirement is for recommended 16GB, which I haven't really seen a lot of recently. To be honest, I agree with this because in my rig I have 16GB of RAM, and I was seeing RAM usage go up to 8GB and over a couple of times when I was playing, but I wouldn't imagine it being a massive restricting factor if you only had 8. Now, for processors, you're looking at the AMD FX 8350 Wraith Edition, which is just the new refresh of the 8350 with the new cooler bundled in. And on the Intel side, you're looking at the Intel Core i7 4790. Now, an i7 is the recommended processor for this game. Now, unlike a lot of other games which recommend a 4790K or an i7 in general, they don't sometimes need it. I think this game definitely needs it. When I was playing, my 4790K was at 70 to 80% load. That wasn't with any extra recording software that was CPU bound being used, and it wasn't with any other really intensive tasks going on in the background either. So this game, I'm not sure what it is, but it is very CPU hungry. Now I'm not sure how they really compare the 8350 on the AMD side to the i7 4790, to be honest, because I know the FX 8350 has 8 cores, 8 physical cores, however it is a lot less powerful than the i7 4790, so we'll just have to see how that plays out in terms of how it will affect it. Now for graphics, you have on the AMD side the AMD RX 480 4GB edition, and for the Nvidia side it's the GTX 1060 3GB edition. This again is put here because it is the latest hardware. You can definitely run it at 1080p max settings, which is what the recommended requirements are usually put out for. You can run that with an R9 390 or a GTX 970, absolutely no problem. So you don't have to run out and get the latest hardware. Now again, hard drive space is 50GB and your internet connection is 512 kilobits per second or faster connection, which I think most people have by now if you're playing online games like this. So this really wasn't too much of a surprise to see this high requirements for the new Battlefield game. If you've got any queries, put them down in the comments below. I might be able to answer them if you are concerned about whether you will be able to run the game. But if you like the video, give it a like. If you disliked it, give it a dislike. And if you want to see more like this, press that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.